Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to LiR Media TV. And the program is LiR Confidential with myself, Pat Barry. And I'm delighted to have, remotely speaking, the way we are today, Patrick Downey, teacher, all the way from Russia at the moment. Good evening, Patrick, and welcome along to the show. We're delighted to have you.
Great to be here, Patrick. I appreciate it.
And tell me something about, where did you grow up?
Well, let's see, I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and then I grew up in the New York suburbs. My father was from New York. Rockland County, if you're familiar with it. Yeah.
And what kind of a family did you grow up in? Was it a big family or?
No, it was a small family. There was only the four of us. This is my father, mother, a younger brother, Michael, and mother was raised a Protestant. My father was reared a Roman Catholic. So I guess in some respects, we were like a typical Irish American family in that my father was very proud of his Irish lineage. And
right. And did he speak a lot about it, or was he? Obviously, he said he was proud of it. With a name like Downey, there's no doubt in the wide little world. There's a lot of Downeys in Ireland, you know, hanging around.
I know.
So, and did your dad make it back to Ireland as well?
He did. We visited Ireland a few times back in the 70s.
Right. Yeah. And what part of Ireland are your relations from or family from?
It's the West Cork, the parish of Desert Surges. It's just south of Bandon, kind of southwest of Bandon, West Cork.
Oh, right. I'm from Cork myself, originally, not North Cork. So, God, I know the Bandon Road well and the viaduct and all of that. You got to see all of that. Anyway, so they're outside Bandon.
Yeah.
Excellent. And tell me, when did a connection with Ireland have much of an influence on your formation and you growing up, on your character, so to speak?
Well, yeah, it certainly did, because my father was stressed, although, like, you know, I'm Irish, Norwegian with a bit of German thrown in.
Yeah.
But my father always stressed the fact that my brother and I were Irish Americans. And, you know, we did a lot of the typical things, which a lot of, you know, Native Irish might consider a bit hokey, for lack of a better word. You know, like we celebrated St. Patrick's Day and corned beef and cabbage, that kind of thing.
Fantastic. I'd like a bit of it now. That would be. I mean, being proud of your lineage, you have to have something to hold on to. You have to have some kind of a star to aspire to, and you have to have an identity in the world. That's what I guess what I'm getting. Were you born in America?
I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yeah.
So, I mean, your dad emphasized the Irish American. Obviously, you know, I mean, there's an awful lot of Irish Americans for the size of the country that we're in. When people compare the island of Ireland with any of the states in the United States, we're a tiny blip. We have less people living in the whole of Ireland than there is in New York. So that's that's our that's our influence. Now, you're a teacher now by profession, but were you in the army at one time?
Yeah, I served in the Marine Corps 2 periods, in 1986 and then 88 to 89.
Right. And did that take you anywhere exciting?
Yeah, it was very exciting. My father was a veteran of the Korean War.
Really?
Yeah, he also saw some action in Vietnam. And then his father, he was a true Irishman. He was a World War I, World War II vet. And so there's a military tradition on that side of the family, as well as my mother's. So I went in kind of blindly to the whole thing, but I served, and I actually got injured and got out and headed straight over to Ireland after serving.
And your dad served, as you said, in the Korean War and the Vietnam, as if one war wasn't enough. He went to Vietnam. How long was he in Vietnam?
Oh, he was only in Vietnam, Operation Passage to Freedom. This is back in 1954 and 1955.
Goodness me.
So yeah, and he was involved in some special operations there. What they did is it was an operation, a naval operation, where they transported tens of thousands, if not more, of Vietnamese Roman Catholics from the north to the south. And there's a lot of fighting going on. And he spoke about, you know, how the poor people have been tortured, etc. Basically, but he was very proud of that. And he saw action in the territorial waters of Vietnam.
Exactly. And you yourself, then, as you said, you got out of the military after you got injured, and you were still in the United States then, were you?
Mm-hmm.
And after that, then you turned to the books, did you?
The book?
The books, as they say here in Ireland, to become a teacher.
The good book. The book. Well, yeah. I always had a. That was always the kind of my family's goal for me, basically. So.
Or was it?
Yeah, thanks be to God, there was some money there. So, you know, I would have been stupid not to have taken that up. So I was fortunate in that respect.
Yeah. And did that take you on your travels then? Tell me, how long were you resident in Ireland?
I'm sorry?
How long were you living in Ireland for?
Let's see. Let's see, the first time I visited Ireland as an adult was back in '88, in the summer of '88.
Right.
I went out to Dublin and to Mayo. Then I returned in, God, was it 1990? Then I returned to do a degree there in '92 at Maynooth.
Maynooth.
Yeah.
Oh, you did your degree here.
Yeah.
And Patrick, if I don't mind asking, if you don't mind saying, do you have an Irish passport?
No. No. Unfortunately, no.
You know, you can get one, of course. You know that. You know.
No, I can't, because actually it wasn't my grandfather who was born. My great grandparents were born in Ireland.
Oh, was it?
So.
Oh, they skipped.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
My grandfather went back in 1920 to Ireland briefly, basically, but you know, he did never pursue citizenship, unfortunately. So.
Yeah. Now, so then you found yourself working in the American Embassy in Georgia.
No. My story's a little hairy. I served with the State Department, with the Foreign Service here in Moscow.
Yeah.
In 2000 to 2002.
Yeah.
And then after that, I got into teaching. I had done like a TEFL course in Ireland back in the late '90s.
All right.
And then I got into teaching after being a diplomat for the better part of 2 years.
That's one of the questions I'm asking. That's, of course, when you depend sometimes on Google. Google doesn't get everything right, as we well know ourselves. You know, sin scale. But so how did you find yourself in Georgia?
In Georgia, okay. Let's see. I was living and working in Milan in 2005. I was teaching at a Sanofi Aventis. They were a pharmaceutical company, French Italian company, and then I spent the summer. Was it 2006 maybe? In Ukraine, and then I got a job offer in Tbilisi. And so I headed to Tbilisi to work for a private school. And then I was recruited by the man who changed my life forever. Most of it turned out to be good, thanks be to God. But yeah. So I was recruited by my former employer, who I'm sure you're aware of.
Bidzina Ivanishvili.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyway. In Tbilisi itself, would you describe Tbilisi itself as a modern city with the usual hustle and bustle?
Well, yeah, it was a bit of a shock, because you know they have a very strong culture. The Georgian people have been through a lot of hardship, especially since the breakup of the Soviet Union. You know, there was a civil war there, etc. So
I know that. Yeah.
So me landing there back in 2006, it was a fascinating place to live, and they're good people.
Yeah. What's his name? Was from Georgia, Joseph Stalin, wasn't he?
It was, yeah. His mother's buried in the church, not too far from where I lived in the center.
Oh, really? Oh, because a lot of history there now. Yeah. You know, I'm out of breath already, Patrick, trying to keep up with your world travels and all this. You're with Patrick Downey is my special guest here, listeners and viewers, on LiR Confidential on LiRmedia.tv, and don't forget to press the red button to subscribe to our channel free of charge. Now, Patrick, you're in Georgia, and you're a tutor to a businessman, we'll say, is it?
Yeah, he got wind of me, the work that I was doing in Tbilisi, and I had an interview with his children, the family, and he hired me for a position as a teacher of English and music for 3 of his children who were homeschooled. So,
and how did that work out? How did that work out for you?
I was there for just over maybe a year and a half, and it worked out pretty well until some strange events happened. I presume you're aware of. So.
Yes, I am. Yeah, and after that period in Georgia, where did after that period, where did you go to then? Where did you find yourself?
I went back to the U.S. for the recommendation. Per the recommendation of the U.S. State Department personnel in Tbilisi, and I spent a year there. And then after I received some threats, back in April of 2009, if memory serves, I traveled to Dublin, and I applied for political asylum in Ireland.
But before that, when you said you went back to the United States after Georgia, obviously you had uncovered some information whilst you were in Georgia, which was of a nature that people didn't want the rest of the world to know about, to put it finely. Would that be correct?
I started to uncover more of that information actually while seeking political asylum in Ireland after the threats. That's when I really began looking into.
So when you went back to America after Georgia,
yeah.
it was very uncomfortable for you to live there, so to speak.
Yeah, it was.
And then, did you decide then to go to Ireland after that?
Yeah, that's right, Patrick. I did.
Yeah. And when you arrived in Ireland, obviously you had no problem coming into Ireland, and most people don't anyway, you know. And where did you find yourself then? when did you, for instance, you had decided to seek political asylum in Ireland,
not having any idea of what political asylum was.
Yeah.
So
obviously it was an eye-opener dealing with our politicians anyway, and to you.
Yeah.
I don't have to say that to you, you know, because many people have been through the mill. So you came to Ireland and you found yourself in Cavan, was it?
No. I was originally, what happened was, this is early September 2009. I flew to Dublin and I spent a bit of time with some friends of mine, some Carlow people.
All right.
And then I applied for political asylum at ORAC, which is the Office of Refugees Applications Commissioner in Dublin.
Yes,
and then
that's attached to the Department of Foreign Affairs. Yeah, under the OSS. Anyway, you applied. Now that application process, you obviously went to them. You got your paper. You got your form to fill out. And did that process take long? Obviously, you filled in your form and you sent it back to them. What happened then? Were you interviewed?
I was interviewed, and then the fellow who interviewed me, he asked me permission. If this is strange, he took my passport, and he said, "I'm going to give this to the U.S. authorities to establish your identity."
That's very odd. And you're going?
Very odd. So that's, in hindsight, maybe it was a political suicide in a sense, but I was in a position where I was putting my trust in the Irish, not only the Irish government, but in my mind, the Irish people.
Yeah.
Because I took these people who work for the Irish government to be good Irishmen and women, the kind of people who I came to love as a young man. So in any event, the fellow took the passport, and then they took a basic history. I was fingerprinted, et cetera, given documents. And then I spent the next 4.5 months living in direct provision in Stillorgan, County Dublin.
Oh, really? So you while they were, as the word says, processing your application, you were in limbo, so to speak. But you were able to move around freely, were you? I mean, you were in direct provision. You were able to move around freely, were you? You had. Did they keep your passport?
They kept my passport.
Did they give you?
I can't remember.
Did they give you the? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, they did keep my passport. Yeah.
And you were there for 4.5 months, is it?
Yeah, but then I forced Brian Cowan's government to close the hostel that I was staying in for human rights violations. And that was reported by the Irish media, by Jamie Deasy of the Southside People.
Yeah.
And then once I had that hostel closed down, then I was made homeless. And that wasn't very nice.
Absolutely.
But
this is serious business now. Yeah.
Oh, they don't give a damn about people. It's serious business, but we're not supposed to talk about it. But
can I just say, Patrick, the place you were staying in wasn't fit to be living in, to put it nicely, and then it was closed down.
Yeah.
And the people who were there were literally left on the sidewalk, so to speak.
I'm sorry.
The people who were in the hostel. I
missed the last bit. You broke up.
Yeah, the people who were in the hostel with you in that place, when it was closed down, you found yourself out on the sidewalk.
Yeah, literally with my and then I had an acoustic guitar and then the people in the hostel, they stole they took my guitar as well. Someone stole my guitar.
I shouldn't be laughing at that, but go on anyway.
You have to laugh.
Go on. What did they get for it? $50, as they say.
I don't know. I don't know. But they filled a couple of buses off, and they sent everyone up down country, and I was left on the sidewalk. And that
really,
I went to and then I went to the Gardaí and pulled mine, and they I spoke to them about 5 minutes, and then I had to flee from them because they were going to beat the hell out of me, basically.
Goodness me. And after that event, which is traumatic enough, where did you find yourself then?
I was originally, I didn't want to be a burden to my friends in Ireland. And these people...
Of course, you didn't have any income, did you? Or you didn't have any money, did you?
I was living off my savings at the time because, I was instructed by my solicitor not to work while I was in direct provision because it was illegal and it would jeopardize my case.
Yes, I know. Your chances are, yeah.
Yeah. So what happened was I ended up in, I don't know if you're familiar with Dublin, but there was a hostel for, fellows with alcohol and drugs problems located around the corner of from Christchurch Cathedral.
Yeah.
And I spent my first week there, and it was great because I had the first good night's sleep in about 4.5 months, and then after that I was homeless for a couple of weeks, and then some friends took me in for a while, and then I ended up in Donegal, punishment.
Donegal, from Dublin to Donegal.
Mm-hmm.
Fair play. And what about? And I shouldn't be laughing at this because I'm just picturing myself being in that position in a country where obviously you had no family. You know the support you'd have in your own country. They were nowhere around. Mm-hmm. So, and how did you wind up in Donegal?
Well, I wound up at another hostel, direct provision in Donegal town, which I later learned was specifically the hostel where the government sent troublemakers. All right.
So people who they've made a judgment without telling them on, yeah.
Yeah, and then basically because what happened was I did have a good a lot of contacts in Dublin, good friends of mine, very good people, and I lied there. I did work a little bit on occasion. I taught at a French school in Rathgar. A fellow owned an English school, but basically the government didn't want me having any sort of income. I mean, they're not stupid people, these politicians, so that's why they sent me to Donegal. I'm sure that's why. And, there's nothing to do there except, to eat and go for walks, basically, or, go to the library, whatever.
And had you any communication from the people who were processing your form for political asylum between all that time?
Yeah, by that stage, I had been denied asylum and I had been denied an appeal.
And did they give you?
Yeah.
Did they tell you why?
Yeah, because basically it was interesting because they told me that the U.S. That the Republic of Ireland considered the U.S. to be a safe country, which in itself is discriminatory. And
I have you. I understand the angle. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
So and then actually they presented me with some documents from the Soros Foundation. In which I believe some NGO that he operates, that George Soros operates, which stated that, there's freedom of press, et cetera, and freedom to movement in the U.S., et cetera. So that was the rationale for denying me political asylum, basically.
So basically what they were saying, you can go back to America and live your life, you'll be fine. Well,
if I changed, but the fella at ORAC, who, the second guy who interviewed me, he said, well, he suggested, why don't you go back to the U.S. and assume a false identity and relocate to a different geographic area of the U.S. And I told him, well, you're nuts if you think I'm going to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. Why should I have to do that?
Well, after that, you didn't do anything wrong. But so you're in Donegal now, and then how long did it take then, Patrick, when, of course, they denied you, they contacted you, did they write to you and deny your political asylum on whatever grounds they can say? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And there was no right of appeal?
No, there was an appeal, which consisted of yours truly and my solicitor, and then a government solicitor, and a fellow who acted as some kind of mediator, where I retold my story and asked again for asylum. which was denied, basically. So I went through that process per se.
So then, when that was finished, of course, you must have been in turmoil at the moment. You were up in Donegal, and you knew that it was denied, and you knew the chances of it, the chance of them changing their mind for you, would not be positive.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at 7 or 8 year wait in order to receive, citizenship, basically, and it's I found it very hard to just sit on my hands all day, getting fat and
eating rubbish.
I couldn't do that for 7, 8 years, basically. So eventually, I left after I uncovered some corruption as well at the hostel. So,
and then what happened after that?
After that, I think this is probably maybe August of 2010. I had an old friend, Patrick, from Cavan. He's a Cavan man, and actually, he's an interesting character because Patrick was an older fella. And he immigrated to the States as a young man.
Right.
And we met in Moscow back when I was with the Foreign Service.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so, but he had married a Russian lady, and he was living in Florida at the time, not too far from my mother, incidentally. And he had a farm. He had a farm outside of Stradone, which basically he needed someone to look after. It worked out pretty well. So I went from Donegal to looking after his rural property in LiR, which is just outside of Stradone.
So you were there in 2010, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, from the summer 2010 up until St. Patrick's Day 2011.
Now, you're there, and you're well. Actually, you have a place to stay now. You have a house, and you have a place to stay, and all of that. Now, when did they make the order for you to exclude you from Ireland? Or when were you made aware of that?
That order.
Did you have to let the Gardaí know where you were living at all times?
No, but I did. I did just out of.
Yeah, I get that.
I did.
So
I went to Cavan.
Yeah, they knew where you were.
Yeah, they knew where we were
at all times. Well, that should have been counted for something. But anyway, to be obvious that if you had something to hide, you disappear. But anyway, you were there, and I'm anxious to know how the process, if you can call it a process, how does it work? Do they say, we have an order here to take you back, to send you back, is it?
Yeah, there was an order, deportation order. It was signed by Dermot Ahern, who was the Minister for Justice at the time. I think that was in the winter of 2010. No. Yeah, around that time, God, I can't forget. I forget.
It doesn't matter.
So I received the deportation order, and then I called the Gardaí, and I spoke to a Bangarda. And
in Cavan?
Yeah, I was in Cavan. I told her, I wasn't going to abide by this. I'm going to stay in Ireland. It's, my right to live, ancestral home,
Right.
I'm not going to, you can go jump in the lake, basically.
Yeah.
And then I actually flew home, I think it was in November, to the U.S. to attend my brother's wedding.
All right.
And I was there for about 4 days, and then legged back to Ireland.
And then you came back. So you flew to America in the meantime, despite the exclusion order, and then you came back again, and came back to Cavan.
Technically, I was deported because I was met by a fellow in plain clothes from the government, who was quite friendly and quite professional, and he kind of gave me my passport back, and then I flew back there, and then I came back in. But I bought a return ticket.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and I had sent the Minister of Justice a letter saying, you can go take this deportation order and stick it, basically.
Yeah.
And then so I came back to Ireland, and then I ended up back in Cavan.
Yeah.
And that's when things got
tough,
a little nasty, basically.
So what happened then while you were in Cavan the second time after coming back from America?
Yeah.
Which is, Patrick, what's strange to me is, if I was you, and obviously I can't put myself in your shoes, you went to America with the exclusion order having been served, right?
That's correct, yeah.
You came back in, you hid with your own name, your own passport, with a return ticket. You came back in,
Yeah.
And swanned all the way up to Cavan again.
Yeah.
And nothing set you on your entry.
No, nothing.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Anyway,
Yeah.
some of these things don't make sense at all. And so you were back in Cavan once again. What happened then?
Well, I was looking after the ponies. There's a fellow, Nick Bird, who lived up the road. I'd go to mass occasionally up at the St. Michael's Church. I got to know some of the people in the area, the farming community.
Yeah.
Really beautiful country. And
absolutely.
What happened was I couldn't get any work, so I was looking for work. Basically, laboring, whatever the case may be. So I couldn't find any work.
Whatever was going, yeah.
Yeah, but I was looking after my friend Patrick's home, etc. And then that was a very cold winter, and then the home heating oil ran out, and then I had to keep the house warm, via cutting down timber, etc. And
lighting fires and all that, yeah.
Lighting fires and all that, and then my food stores eventually ran out, and then so I was living off the land. There's fish in the area. There's the lake there that runs through LiR, the river, I should say. And then a couple of times I shoplifted food, Christmas, for example, because I'd been denied social welfare at that point. I'd gone to the HSE for emergency payment. They denied me social welfare, so it was just banging my head up against the wall.
Beavers almighty. So you got through that Christmas. I've no idea how you did, not to gloss over it. What happened then in that New Year?
Then the New Year, and then I had gone repeatedly to the media for some kind of assistance. I'd gone to the social welfare, HSC, up in Ballyhaise and in Cavantown. And then I'd gone to even the priest at the Cathedral of St. Patrick and St. Phelim. They weren't really open to listening, let alone helping me out, basically. So back around February, it got very bad in that, I was dropping weight, basically. And I thought, well, hell, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to starve to death as my ancestors did in this country.
Yeah.
And, I'll just go back to the U.S. and face whatever, happens, whatever.
Exactly.
So I basically surrendered myself to Gardaí.
In February or March, whatever it was, in 2011 or something, was it?
February 28th, and that was in Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Virginia and Cavan. So then you went off. You went off home, or
no? They threw me in prison and they tortured me for the first 24 hours while I was there. And I don't use that term jokingly. Basically,
you're saying that the Gardaí mistreated you.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah.
What were they trying to do?
Well, what they did is they put the cuffs on me in Virginia, and then they drove me to some other town where I was held for a couple hours before I was eventually taken in a car to Clover Hill Prison, which is in Dublin.
Yeah.
And they immediately, I was processed for about an hour, and then they threw me in the D2 unit, which was the mental health unit, in solitary confinement in something akin to a padded room with a telly blasting, basically. And for me, prison had always been something that it was my worst nightmare. And it's unless you've gone through something like that, you can't really understand it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't treated very nicely, and then I broke. I broke, probably came very close to breaking down mentally. And then
that'd be a huge challenge for anybody. Because mentally, that'd be a huge challenge.
I was going from this farm to, being stuck in a cell.
Yeah.
With no blanket or whatever the case may, it was rough. But then the next morning I was thrown into general population. Things got slightly better.
And had you access to a solicitor?
I did, but he was just there to make money and he didn't give a damn about me. So
yeah,
it didn't work.
And how long did it take then, Patrick, before you got on the plane back home?
About 3 weeks.
And what were you in jail all that time?
Yeah, I was in after D2, I was put in the C1 landing and I was held there for, I think it was about 18 days until St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
Yeah.
And they actually brought you to the airport.
Yeah, there were 3 plainclothes detectives took me to the airport.
And obviously then you were back in America.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you then in America?
I was living with my mother in Florida's Gulf Coast, basically.
Yeah, obviously it took you time to recover because, I mean, all of that doesn't takes its toll, and it doesn't come lightly for a human being. Like, so
Yeah.
probably the fact that you're back home with your mother, like all Irish people, we know how important your mother is in the family. And so that probably was a blessing in one way, just to at least be back in some kind of normality again without any, with less stress, so to speak, in your life, you know?
Sure.
And then my special guest is Patrick Downey here on LiR Confidential on LiRmedia.tv, and our email is info@lirmedia.tv. And don't forget to press the red button in the front to subscribe to our YouTube channel and tell all your friends about us. Patrick, I'm thinking if I was in that position, I don't know what I'd do, but no one knows. But it's a testament that you're here talking to me, that you got through, it some way, you know, some way, somehow. Now, you're in, how did you get to where you are now? What kind of process did that happen?
Well, the process was that, you know, I tried to receive some assistance via the media in the U.S. However, I was censored by the media in the U.S. because, I had to tell you that the reason that I sought political asylum in Ireland was because Ivanishvili threatened me, and he actually threatened to kill me.
Yeah.
I can name a name. Can I name a name?
He threatened to kill you?
I received an email from one of his employees.
We were talking about Bidzina Ivanishvili, yeah.
Yeah, so he first I was threatened by his charity fund manager at Car2 Bank, who in 2013 became Prime Minister of Georgia after Ivanishvili became Prime Minister of Georgia, or maybe it was 2014. So
it's a very
I went to the US government repeatedly, FBI, Department of Justice, Department of State, trying to get assistance because I'd received these threats. And that's when they started stonewalling me, and that's when I went to Ireland, basically. But getting back to after I was deported for the second time, my St. Patrick's Day deportation.
Yeah.
I'm at my mother's, and I couldn't find any work. You know, it's difficult trying to find a work as a teacher if you have a prison record, and you know, I didn't want to lie to these people, so.
Obviously, you're be upfront about it because you didn't commit any crime.
Well, yeah, and then what happened was Ivanishvili back then. This was we're fast forwarding to, I think it was the spring of 2012. He was up to become Prime Minister of Georgia. So the U.S. government, CIA, Department of State, they were getting rid of Saakashvili and putting Ivanishvili in power. He was false opposition, basically.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have that on good authority. So what happened was I hooked up with a fellow, Tim Burns. He's a former journalist from Canberra who had covered the 2008 war in South Ossetia, the Russo-Georgian War.
Yeah.
And another American journalist who I'd actually met once in Tbilisi, Jeffrey Silverman. And we put together a blog in the run-up to the Georgian prime ministerial election.
Yeah.
Which Jeffrey published, which had 6,500 hits within 24 hours. And he's a very bright guy. What he did is he used all his contacts, all these spooked contacts he has and government contacts. And we released that. And then it generated a political scandal in Georgia, which wasn't reported in the US. Because, you know, you're not supposed to go up against these people if you're nobody, basically.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to fight these corrupt, evil bastards.
Yeah.
If you're no one like me.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, you know what the hell? I'm not, you know.
And so,
what happens.
Did this cause much trouble for him in Georgia, or did he get in anyway? Did it make any difference then?
Well, it did. It did. It was. I think it was very damaging to him personally, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And
you were obviously you were familiar with the setup in Georgia, and having been there yourself, and
sure.
having well sussed out the lie of the land there, so to speak. Now, you then you're still in America at this stage.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what happened after that then? Did that publicity filter down after that? I know you're laughing like.
Well, it's fascinating because I was watching it all unfold via the internet in Georgia. And I'm trying, and like, it just, it was a pretty big scandal. And I'm kind of famous in Georgia, or infamous, basically. And
Nice.
once I kind of copped on that, this wasn't going to be mentioned in the U.S., and I was really screwed.
So if I go to Tbilisi tomorrow, I'll get percentage off my restaurant dining if I mention your name.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like a half price.
Yeah, depends what restaurant you go to. You might get thrown out the window,
Anyway, you're at home still in America at this stage.
Yeah.
After the turmoil in Georgia,
and
of course, like in many countries around the world, they're run by a small coterie of, like our own country here in Ireland. We have the same in 100 years of our existence. Just to let you know, Patrick, if you're not aware, we have the same parties in power about 100 years.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, that's for another discussion maybe sometime. So you're in America then, and how does things get? And you can't find work.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Can't find work at all.
Well, I couldn't find work in my profession.
Yes.
And I'd done some labor and construction in New York City as a young guy, but I don't know,
just to pay the bills.
Things weren't really going my way as I had intended, So then what happened was I actually went through a bit of a spiritual awakening, and
there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, well, I did, and I felt that God was calling me to Russia, and I also thought, obviously Russia, or Putin is Ivanishvili's enemy, etc. And so I thought maybe that'd be a good place to seek political asylum. And having lived there for 3 years, back from 2000 to 2003, I thought I'd give it a go.
Do you speak the language?
I do. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that was a positive anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
big positive, yeah.
Well, I felt I'd be safe there, and I'd be able to build a future for myself here. And,
so, how did you go about applying for? How did you go about that then, if you don't mind talking about it?
Yeah, what happened was I had been in contact with a Georgian fella who was opposed to the regime in the Ivanishvili regime in Georgia, whose son was actually in prison at the time in Georgia. And he put me in touch with the right people to go to here in Moscow. And I was given an address, and I actually called an old friend of mine who acted as a translator because my Russian then wasn't that great. And I applied for political asylum with the relevant governmental organization.
You applied whilst you were in America?
No, while I was sorry, I returned to Moscow.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah.
In May 1st, 2012.
Yeah, you applied that time. Yeah. And you're there since?
I was there, I should say, up until my family and we moved to the U.S. I spent a year in Minnesota, and I just recently returned to Moscow as a result of the madness going on in the States back at the moment. So.
Well, I forgot to mention, obviously, Patrick, you have a family. We're not excluding your family on purpose. We just didn't get around to speaking about them. And your wife, where's your wife from?
My wife, LiR, is from Moscow region, from the suburbs.
And you have children?
Yeah, we have children. We have a daughter, Maria, who's 6, and a son, Michael, who's 4. And
Maria and Michael, they're very Irish names.
Yeah.
That's very good. Maria and Michael. We'll say hello to Maria and Michael and Lara.
We'll do.
And they're doing well.
They are, they are, they are. Life here is challenging, but they're in fine health, and they're the love of my life along with their mother, and it's everything's just turned to be a massive blessing in disguise, So
Obviously, you keep an
yeah,
eye on all things political in America, and
yeah,
we won't get drawn into whether it's wrong or right. But
hmm
obviously, the Republicans were in power, well, had the presidency the last 4 years, and it looks like probably won't get it this time.
hmm
And you have family now, obviously in America, and relations and all of that. So, what do you think of the incoming if they are going to be of Biden and Harris? What kind of a regime will they foist upon the American people?
I think it's going to be a brutal, communist-oriented regime, and I think a lot of people are going to be very upset having to adapt to imposed socialism in the U.S. That's
Did
my
you think?
unfortunate
Oh,
feeling.
did you think overall that the 4 years of Donald Trump was more positive than negative for the American people?
Oh, absolutely, no doubt about it. The man, he's been great for the country.
Well, we have spoken to both sides. Obviously, we've spoken to both Democrats and Republicans.
hmm
We did a special on the election night, and
Oh,
there's what we did yet was a rather, I love elections myself. I love the excitement of them. I mightn't be
yeah, yeah.
supporting anybody, but I just love listening to people and how involved they are. But
Mhm.
obviously, America. I mean, people should realize that it is important to the world who is president of the United States. People might scoff at
Oh,
those ideas, but it is important for
absolutely.
for international relations as well.
hmm
And I think, as you said, Trump wasn't a politician, and I think that worked in his favor
Yeah,
in
yeah.
many. I mean, he took huge chances politically that a politician wouldn't have taken. For
Yeah,
instance, he went over to Korea to meet Kim Jong Un there that time from North Korea. He stepped into North Korea, South Korea, and really, I think that was a huge, what's the word, challenge for him, you know, for the people
Mhm.
around him. But I think it has worked out very positively, you know.
Yeah. There's an awful lot of attention focused on his his demeanor, etc. That a lot of people don't like. But having grown up in New York, I was always aware of him, and on a personal level, I think he's not a bad person. He's done a lot of really good things for African Americans, for example.
Yes, yes.
Uh, and it's a shame that the way the media has attacked him since
Oh,
even before he was
it's
elected. So it just goes to show you
well.
they
I'm
want
I'm
they want the
Patrick.
man out.
Patrick. I don't know, and I don't like coming across as if I'm taking any sides myself, being in the media myself. But I
hmm
thought it was just a way over the top, the media, for the
Yeah.
last 4 years against his presidency. And I thought it was scandalous myself, the way some of them behaved, just
Yeah.
shocking. I don't know how the man survived it on a
Yeah.
personal level,
I know.
You can imagine every waking day there's some other bit of nonsense going on in the media. And I don't know. What do you think
Yeah.
yourself? Do you think
Mhm.
America now itself is, I mean, Trump got 70 million odd votes, Do you think it's totally divided now into blue
Oh
and
yeah,
red?
America, the cultural war, it's been waging in the U.S. for decades, and it's coming to a head. So I think that Trump did bring it to a head to an extent, but it was bound to happen. So we just have to wait and see what happens with that regard. But
Yeah,
people are
and you,
diametrically opposed to each other.
huh? Oh dear.
People are diametrically opposed to one another.
Your families are divided, even.
Oh,
Families
my,
are
my
divided.
family's divided. My brother is for Trump. My mother's for Biden. They don't agree on anything. We don't agree on anything. It causes friction within our family.
So you can't discuss it.
It's a shame, but what are you
It
going to do?
is. I interviewed Joe Flynn there not so long ago before the election. That would
Mhm.
be Lieutenant General Michael Flynn's brother.
Really?
Yeah, I interviewed Joe Flynn.
Oh,
Well, they're
wow.
from a big Irish family. There's 9 in that family, a big Irish family. But he's a very interesting man. I'll send you the link to the interview.
Great.
I'll
Yeah.
send you. You can look at it sometime. I thought he was very measured and very good. I know we're getting off the track. But you yourself today,
Mhm.
what's in front of you now, Patrick, at the moment? Are you reasonably settled in your life?
No, unfortunately, Moscow's gone into lockdown, and we were unable to. When we returned here, we thought things had not gotten as bad as they had been. So, for example, we tried to get registration for my wife. My wife is a Russian citizen in Moscow. We rented a flat, but I don't want to really. My kids were denied a place in school because they didn't have registration. So we moved back to the suburbs, and now I'm looking for work abroad at the moment because there's no work here, unfortunately.
And well, here in Ireland at the moment, as I'm in the heart of Limerick City. Our studio is in Limerick City, and there's no place open. You know, it's a shocking indictment of the system. I have no idea, and I'm in the age group of the endangered, so to speak. But anyway,
yeah.
And my dad, who is 90, doesn't believe in wearing all these face things at all. You know, he said, "Look,
no.
This is I won't get started because my hair, as you can see, has gone grayer in the last couple of months than it used to be." But so Patrick, have you any intention in the near future or a long-term idea of coming back to or making an attempt to come back to Ireland?
I would relocate to Ireland in a heartbeat with my wife and children. Were the rule of law to exist in some fashion in the Republic of Ireland, basically. But, it's a country without rule of law. It's a mafia enclave in the western fringes of Europe.
That's how you describe it?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a mafia enclave, and you can argue who's responsible for that. But, I mean, it's just, come on, I would love to return to Ireland to live there. My wife's definitely afraid of us even returning to the north of Ireland, for example, basically. So.
Well, that's the United Kingdom at the moment. So,
I know.
The United Kingdom are leaving the European Union next year now, Sure. With all this. And what about America would not be an option for you?
No, especially not at the moment, because when I was at work, I was threatened. I ended up working as in a management position at a Walmart in Rochester, Minnesota, and I had a gun pulled on me twice. Basically, to the Black Lives Matter people,
Well,
and so so after that, I thought, what the hell, we're going back to Moscow. At least no one's going to pull a gun on me. And there were some problems because you were aware of what happened in Minneapolis, etc.
Yeah, I am.
And that kind of filtered down to Rochester, and it was just so much malarkey that we didn't want to deal with it, basically. And so if there's violence, we can't.
I know all that rioting and looting. Yeah. I can't get my head around it. I'm sorry to say, and I'm in the world a long time, longer than you have, Patrick. I have to say, I just don't see the point of it. And how come it was allowed carry on for days on end? Why was it allowed to carry on?
I think it was intentional. So obviously to foment additional.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, okay, 24 hours. You'd be writing for 24 hours and burning and looting. But this was a whole week or 10. I know. I'm just numbed by the whole thing. Yeah. I was thinking if I was in charge of that town or that city, it wouldn't last for a week anyway. I can tell you that much.
No, well, eventually people are going to have to do the right thing, and they're going to have to. The government's has to intervene and protect the lives of U.S. citizens, regardless of their race or political persuasion, whatever the case may be. So they let those BLM and Antifa just destroy that city. Basically, they were part of it.
So you would be pessimistic about the next 4 years under Biden and Harris?
Oh yeah. We could be looking at more strife, basically, potential civil war. I don't mean to sound like an alarmist, but
it has been mentioned in other fora as well, about that potential, and we might be laughing, you and I, about it, but these things can happen very quickly, quickly, and they can escalate very quickly, as we know, And America, of all places, should be I mean, it's not so long ago when they had their own civil war. It's only 150 years ago, which is not a long space of time. When America had its own civil war, which is shocking. Anyway, Patrick, it's been an absolute joy to have you.
Oh.
And we will catch up with you again on this show. We have your email.
Okay.
We have your contact numbers. And really, I want to wish you and your wife and your kids the very best whatever may store, hope it'll be positive, you know.
Okay.
And for this edition of LiR Confidential on LiRmedia.tv, and from our special guest, Patrick Downey, thank you very much for being with us, Patrick, and a good evening and good luck.
Thank you, Patrick. God bless. Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you.
And you too. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I counted us down there, Patrick, because if you knock off the Zoom, you're gone. You disappear off the screen.
Oh, okay.
But we'll catch up again someday. You know, we didn't touch it a lot, probably as much as we should have. But now that we're at ease with each other, I'd like to talk to you again sometime. You know, down the line.
I'd really appreciate that. I know my story's a bit out there.
Yeah.
And I sound a bit out there, but you know, it is what it is. So
no, I mean, I don't see anything. There's many of those stories around the place that people didn't pay attention to in time, you know. And then when they did, it can be always too late, you know.
Yeah,
and
true.
And we'll keep in touch. And when this is done, this evening, hopefully, when this is done, we'll email it to you, and I'll give you a link to Joe Flynn's interview as well, you know.
Oh, that'd be great.
Joe's I really enjoyed Joe, you know, just shooting from the hip, boom, 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 and what you see is what you get, and there's no hiding or anything like that, you know.
Well, I look forward to that.
He's probably in despair now because of Donald Trump losing, you know. Well, hopefully there's an outside chance that he may not, but I think that's just wishful thinking now.
Yeah,
you know,
wishful thinking.
That's all it is. Patrick, say hello to your wife and kids, and we'll catch up again. And thank you again very much.
Thank you. Take care of yourself. God bless.
And the very best.
Bye-bye. Regards to your father, too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Mum is still alive at 91.
Oh, you're blessed then. Wow, that's brilliant stuff.
1991. I said to my son the other day, I'm going to be around for another 30 years, so you have to be good to me. He said, oh, no. He said, I'll have to immigrate anyway.
Good man. That's super.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Take care. Bye.